Righto, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast in your ears known as Dirtbagz. It's a lovely Thursday afternoon, 6 o'clock. This podcast just coming out, so make sure you keep that in the back of your mind as time to tune in. But as always, I'm your host, Josh Curran, here with my co-host, Danny Curran. DC, what's going on in your world this week?
Oh, mate, I don't know what is going on in my world. There's always a bit to do, but we've always got fantastic guests on, Josh. You know, it's another Thursday. It's another beautiful day. And I tell you what, we got Mikey Zacka, none other than, well, what do we want to say about Mikey Zacka? He's got racing lineage. He owns the best shock shop in Australia. He does a range of work and he races all sorts of vehicles as well. Mike, I can still remember when you came out with that super wild Class 7 that had King Kongs on it, a Jackaroo, who was as wild as it gets. But, I mean, again, your father's raced and Zoom's raced. I mean, you've got heritage and race vehicles, you know, out the yin-yang, haven't you?
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, look, it's all the kind I've ever known. I wasn't very good at ball sports, and you had to run too much in tennis, and I wasn't old enough to get a golf cart when I played golf with my grandpa, and I guess like you said, granddad raced and dad raced, so I was pretty keen on it straight up. Yeah,
brilliant. Hey, Mikey, well, that's an interesting one. So, again, a lot of the off-road racers will understand your history, but let's go back to the very start. Tell us about how Zoom got involved, because let's even go a bit further back. It wasn't always just off-road racing with Zoom, was it? He had through his hand at a little bit of everything. Gundawindi local?
Yeah, so he was born and bred Gundy. I think his dad was too, I'm pretty sure. So he was just a bloke from the bush. Their family had a car dealership, and I think he just made a habit of taking cars from the yard and just thrashing them. And I think one thing led to another, and he just ended up racing from his whole life. Pretty much as soon as he was old enough to make the decision and pay for it and make it happen, it was on, and that's where it started, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that was bitumen racing to start off with, or did he go with off-road?
Look, I'm pretty sure it was bitumen to start with. I can't give you the exact timeline. There was tarmac circuit. There was rally. You had to go at the safaris, and then off-road. You know, I think he had a big part in the original Gemini series and starting that. I think he was in the first 2 or 3 seasons, won a few championships, and yeah, just pretty much drive anything. He was happy driving a tractor, lawnmower, but as long as it was as fast as it would go. So
as long as he could hold it flat, he was in.
Yeah, for sure.
And then obviously that led to him racing factory in the off-road in class. It was 8 in those days, wasn't it? Even though it's probably what we think of more about a bit more class 70, but class 8 Rodeo was his real big claim to fame, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think the Rodeos was he raced a number of different cars, but I think the rodeo, as he'd be shooting me from heaven, just calling it a rodeo. The rodeo, it was
yes,
we're not American. He used to say to me, it's a rodeo.
Fair.
And anyway, he did do most of his, I guess, winning in the rodeo. He was pretty consistent. He was fast. I'm sure he crashed a lot too. He probably left a lot of those stories out when I was younger about how many trees he hit or how many times he went over. But he raced, I'd say, late 70s through to the late 80s or mid 80s, had a bit of a breather. And then my dad jumped in and started doing some buggy stuff. And then I think him and actually Jeff McNiven from JSW Power Sports, he was involved in working at my dad's workshop as an apprentice down at Springwood there when I was a little boy. And I think in about 94, they built another car. And I actually have that car now as a daily. I got it back, but they built that, and that was his last off-road car. It was the first off-road car I ever went in, actually, as well.
Wow, so that's an amazing story. That's very cool. Yeah, and you now daily drive it.
Oh, yeah. I ripped the tire off the rim the other night, but it's pretty much to work and back every day, yeah.
Brilliant. That's awesome. So then let's hit the buggy scene, because then you guys became highly competitive at the top level of the sport, which was the Pro Buggy. It was actually running a 1 back in those days, wasn't it? Like, was that because it was a Pro Light?
Nah, so Pro Light wasn't a thing. So back in the day, it was class 1 through to 9. And it was like, if you take Pro Light out of the equation, class 1 was Pro Buggy.
Yep.
Class 2 was 1650, as the number would indicate, and so on. And class 9 was a Pro Buggy single seater. So,
right.
Yeah, so they were pro cars. Like his first 2 class 1 buggies, they were 6 cylinders. The first, he bought Peter Glover's, I don't even know what it might have been, a Cobra or a Hornet or something frame. I don't know, but it had a red hot Porsche motor in it. So he bought that, raced it a couple of times, and then he went over to the States and bought that car behind me.
Yes.
That was the Wilsons. It was a Raceco, started life as a beam front end and a 1650 car. I'm pretty sure it won the 1,000. And Mikey Stapleton cut the front end off it, and I think between him and Lance King, who was at Custer at the time, designed it. And yeah, it was one of the first like A-arm cars to have big success as a buggy, I think, overseas.
That's amazing. And that car's back overseas now after doing a long stint in Australia, and it's just been raced at Nora. How cool is that, in the 1,000-mile?
Yeah, and it looks like it did the day that like it left the States the first time, which I thought was awesome.
It does. It looks so beautiful. The guys from Wilson have just done an amazing job with it, which then leads us on to a few other things, because then you guys went down, you actually ended up with a Jimco car after that with a Cosworth in it. Is that right, Mikey?
Yeah, so I think it was in about 97. So Paul and Dion Simpson had these wild single-seat Jimcos. I'm pretty sure they came in just before my old man's one did. They were these 4-liter Toyota things, and they were just insane, man. They were so cool. And then, so he bought a car off, I'm pretty sure it was Doug Fortin. It was either Jolson or Fortin. I don't know. I just remember as a kid, it had Fox shocks all down the side of it when it turned up in the garage. And, so it came with no engine. And then they put an SR20 turbo in it. I think I just had problems trying to run too much power through it. I don't really remember. I was pretty young. I was just there for the glory of,
Well, in the 90s, the SR would have been a very early development motor. Like, it was pretty fresh from Nissan back then. You know, there wouldn't have been a lot of parts, because am I on the right track? You ended up going down the Cosworth path, and it had some, am I on the right? It had some Dick Johnson parts on it.
Yeah, so they ended up with the RS500 red top Sierra motors, and they had, I think they had 2 or 3 engines. There was a couple of Johnson motors and a Longhurst engine.
Wow.
And it did make some big numbers. I can't quote them accurately, so I won't.
Yes.
But they were definitely north of 600. Like, and this is when I was 10 years old, out of a cast iron block 4-cylinder. You know, like, it's pretty wild.
And in the 90s, again, if we've got lots of new listeners, Mikey, like an A-arm car with 600 horsepower was the creme de la creme. Like, that was an amazing piece of technology in those days. Like, it truly was game changing.
Yeah, look, it was so fast. But to be fair, to my old man and their team, you know, they didn't finish a lot of races, but they were pushing so much horsepower, and they were blowing up gearboxes. And which also, I believe, if I'm and you know, anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that led to the development of the Albans box, because I think the first or second Albans box ended up in the car. And then that was the end of the gearbox problems, you know, like except for a Porsche linkage at the back, it was mid-engine, and it used to get stuck in gear. It was the only Porsche part left on it. But So they had big horsepower. It was super fast. Like, I went for a ride out at, it was Rob McKenzie's farm. He doesn't own it anymore, out of part of the Gundawindi track. But we had a run out there. I think I was 12 years old, and on the GPS, so that would have been 02. We're talking, you know, 238 kilometers an hour. And I don't think there's many cars out there that are that fast now. My old man said it had more in it. I was shaking for about 2 days after it, but I was hooked. I just wanted to do it again and again.
Yeah, that's a truly amazing car for the era, because, again, it was sort of a time frame where with those A-arms and that, you know, like there was such a giant technological leap. And as you mentioned, which is interesting because it's a great point, is that it was at the time where gearboxes and suspension and arms and hubs and everything were trying to catch up, weren't they? Because essentially you had the 600 horsepower plus, but you needed all the bits behind it to make it work as well. So that truly was an amazing car. And there's great footage, as Josh has shown on YouTube. There is quite a bit of it available, including at Gundawindi and different bits and pieces. And
I think this is Fink. I think this
this is some Fink footage. Yep.
I think this is the first and only time he went to Fink. He had some problems in prologue. I think they were second or third, 03. And it was. I didn't get to go to that race, but I heard some pretty good stories. It was just one of those ones. I'd probably been naughty, kicked out of school or something. So,
yep, it happens.
Yeah.
But then after that, so you guys actually had, because it is a small world, you guys actually had Josh's Jimco, the 41, for a short period of time there as well. Obviously, you guys were planning on racing that. Was that a Zacka car for?
I don't think so. I don't know. Oh. I don't know. I don't know. I'm too young to know the ins and the outs of Zoom and Brad's business, man. Like I said, I've seen all the cars come and go.
Yep.
Yes. And I remember I think the first time I met Paul Wheel, we had 2 stadium trucks down at my granddad's house at Kingston, and him and his dad come down there. And he would have been 15 or 16. He probably wouldn't remember me. I was just a little kid in the side of the yard in awe, watching what was going on. But my granddad was a wheeler and dealer, man. So there was, there was probably cars that came and gone that I had no idea about or didn't remember.
Well, we'll have to talk to Brad at some point, but I believe at some point, essentially in transit, your granddad and Brad actually owned both the Wilson Jimcos that are in Australia at the moment, because that was going to get me to. Then you made the step. You obviously did Class 7 and a bit other stuff, and then you've moved into a ridiculously fast Can-Am, actually a long one, which is interesting because the long Can-Ams never really took off in Australia, did they? Not a lot of people racing them.
Look, I'll be honest with you, it is certainly not fast. It was like carrying around a dead weight on your back. Like, it was slow. I struggled in it. Like, I had to drive the wheels off it to get it anywhere in a short course, like, and because of the wheelbase, and they're quite narrow too, I didn't extend the track. But because of the wheelbase, they just wanted kind of like a limousine, you imagine trying to tip it into a corner and the thing just doesn't want to play.
Yes.
And but it was a little bit slow. Like we tried to, because I bought an older car, we tried to, I guess, upgrade the turbo package when they bought out the 2020 model, and I just never could get it right. And it was a lot slower, I guess, from 0 to 120. It still did the same top speed. So when we got going, like at Fink and Gundy and stuff, and I could just hold the thing as fast as it would go, we could get some good times. But like, it was a bit frustrating, a short course, like coming second and third and stuff. And at Cruiser Park there a few years ago, it was just difficult, I guess, on the old, because you want to win. But
absolutely.
But I chose that car purely based on, I specialize in suspension, and I wanted to have the best handling side by side in terms of how fast it can go over the holes. And I kind of thought we'll just sacrifice a bit of short course speed. I don't really like short course. If COVID didn't happen, I probably wouldn't have raced as many short courses. It's never really been my passion. But it just turned out the way it did. So we raced what we could race, and we had a few cracks at Gundy, and we had one run at Fink, we had a disaster run to Fink, but we had a dream run other than the traffic on the way home. So it was good. A lot of fun.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, out of interest then, Mikey, because I'm definitely interested, because one of the things that always fascinates me is, even though that they're, let's say they're a lighter vehicle as a race car, but they're amazing because you guys are running, are they a 3.0 or a 3.5 coil carrier? Like, that's a big shock absorber on that all the way around.
Yeah, so on the front, they're 2.5 internal bypass, the King shocks. Like, they come with a factory Fox 2.5.
Right.
They've got a slightly smaller piston, just as due to the design of the shock. But the King's a monotube 2.5 IBP, and the rear's a 3.0 IBP.
Yep. That's amazing. Hey, I only say that with respect to like not so long ago, if you had 2.5s and 3.0s in your Pro Buggy, that was a wild shock. And now, you know, these factory side-by-sides are coming out. And then once you upgrade, like you can really, man, well, Josh and I have had to eat our words because, you know, we were the biggest, I don't want to say haters, but we were the biggest ones paying them out back in the day, you know, 2013, 14, 15, when we were racing. They were rolling roadblocks in the old XP 900 days. But nowadays, like they get up on top of the Bonduma whoops, and you're the best man to ask. What are you doing? Are you doing 110, 120 kilometers an hour through the Bonduma whoops?
Honestly, I never looked at the speedo. But I think I checked my split times, and through the rough section of the track, I think we were 13th or 14th fastest car outright from kind of Bundoomba to Radinga. Like there was only one real section of whoops this year, and the car was as fast as it would go where it could go. Like I really tried. I didn't look at it like the speed, and we kind of felt comfortable in it. Literally went over everything. Like we had one or two wild moments coming over some dunes just because the road went the other direction. But it blew my dad away too. Like I tried to tell him how fast these Can-Ams go over the holes. I'm like, man, they're insane. Like not just Can-Ams, side by sides, but like they just you can go down to your jet ski dealer, literally spend 45 grand. Go throw a set of shocks on it, or even if you don't want to put shocks on it, go see your local UTV specialist or shock guy and upgrade the factory shocks. And you can go out and you can run across those whoops at probably 125 or 30 is probably more the speed if there's no dust and you can see where you're going. But they're kind of maxed out. Yeah, that 4C is kind of maxed out through there.
Yep, you're basically holding it flat.
Yeah, like I think we did a 204 on the way home. We had to overtake. We had to overtake a lot of cars. Like we got stuck a few times, which is a part of it. We had a shit day on the first run, so you know you raced the hand you dealt, and we were dealt we had a bad run, so we had to start a long way back. But in hindsight, it was awesome because I got to have a all for nothing run. Doesn't matter. Just drive hard, have fun, and see what happens. And it didn't even matter if we didn't make it back. We were just going to drive it till the car stopped running. Yeah, and it was cool.
Love it.
Yeah, well, Dan and I were only talking about it the other day. We said we think like the development that's happened in side by sides is awesome because there's that factory sort of sponsorship behind it. Like there's two or three companies, or mainly two big players, but Can-Am and Polaris that are sort of going head to head, and it's cool. We're talking about the new Polaris that's coming out. That's going to be the new Pro R, and we're saying it's going to be a bit of a weapon, and it's going to be interesting to see the if the pendulum swings back towards Polaris at the moment, because it seems like it's if you want to win, you got to be in a Can-Am, and it's going to be interesting to see if it comes back to Polaris. And I'm sure you guys at Mike's Shock Shop have probably got something planned already for these new Polarises.
Oh, look, I'd love to say yes. Just with everything that's going on in the world, we're still a little bit away from sorting out the 2-litre one. We have a package for the turbo, but the factory haven't got their hands on a 2-litre one, and they just want to package it right before they offer it all in terms of that. But look, the Polaris, man, from everything I've seen, it looks insane. I spoke to the host, the guest you had last week, Simon Evans. I spoke to him a few weeks ago just on some parts, and I asked him, and he said that it was a real animal. I also spoke to Dave Mendham and Alex Mendham from Dubbo City Power Sports down their motorcycle shop down in Dubbo, KTM Polaris dealers. They said same thing, just said it's a real animal. And I think if you watched the Best in the Desert the other day with old Mitch Guthrie, like it's obviously a machine, you know? Yeah.
Oh, it's running as fast as any 10 car or any other car at the moment. It's pretty impressive for sure.
It's all in the 4-wheel drive, man. Once they sorted out the geometry and the reliability, like 4-wheel drive is just so good. Like I don't even want to drive one because my bank's never going to be able to afford a real 4-wheel drive. So it's just like, I think it would just be, going to the drive-through to smell the food. It's just not.
Yep. I hear you, mate. I definitely hear you. Robbed.
Yeah.
Well, hey, listen, you talk a big game because I want to get into all the tech side with you, but let's finish up your progression with the car. It's not a secret. Everyone's seen the Instagram post and that, mate. tell us about this new car, because Josh and I are absolutely, oh, mate, this car just makes us so excited. If I could buy any car anywhere, I reckon I'd be buying this one. And you've stolen it from under me, mate. I didn't have the money, so it's all yours. I'm glad it came to Australia.
To be honest, mate, I had to work night and day, weekend to find the money. They were really lovely, man. Like the Wilsons are longtime friends of my family, and I don't even know if the car was for sale or what the score was, but I was ready for a car. Like Can-Am's turned into checkbook racing. I shouldn't say that and deter people, but like at the front end at national level, like the maintenance is getting up there, and to stay fast and to stay reliable. So it was like, this is, it's time to do it. I've been working real hard trying to, I didn't race for a lot of years. Like after the Class 7, it took me 5 years to get back on the track outside of like Andrew Moles giving me a go and Jeff McNiven. And like, I've had a few good opportunities outside of my own cars, but, just it was time. And I priced up a few options. I wanted a Jackal. I wanted a Reese Millen Jackal, but
yes, that would have been cool.
Yeah, I got a price, and it was definitely outside of my reality at the moment, and probably in the near distant future. And it also, it's a new thing, and I can't really afford to be the pioneer with all that technology, nor do I really want to. Yes. And I talked to John Cooley from Illumicraft. I always wanted a new car, and I kind of just floated the idea at my dad and said, hey, man, if I was ever going to buy a secondhand car, I'd only buy it out of one shed because I know how well they're looked after. I said, can you ring Ronnie or Randy and ask them if they, sell me the car? And, I guess they came back to me and had a chat with Ronnie, and they were stoked to do it. And I was super stoked with the opportunity. Like I said, I've been dreaming of this since I was 3 years old, mate. Like literally.
Oh, yeah.
I have not thought about anything else really in my personal time except off-road racing. Yes. And the fact that I'm actually going to get to have a V8 Jimco and at least, put my money where my mouth is and have a go. I'm super excited, and I'm super grateful to the Wilsons for offering me the car. And I can't wait. I'm super stoked. So yeah.
Well, one of the great things about that car that you're going to love is the fact that it's going to roll off the ship here in Australia and just be ready to rock and roll. Like you're going to be able to take that car anywhere. But I do believe you are talking about heading over to America to do a bit of racing with the car first before you bring it back to Australia.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Sorry, Mikey. I'm cutting in here just for a second before we get too far ahead. For all of us, me included, I want to know some specs of this car before we move on to your racing schedule. So it is an updated Jimco 2000. Is it still off the 2000 style A-arms or?
Look, I can't tell you. Once again, I don't want to quote stuff that's not fact, so I don't know. I can tell you this: there was a small run of cars made.
Yes,
a small run. Concrete Motorsports had one. Kevin Thompson had one. Bobby Lofton. So Lofton's got one. So it was just in one car.
Yes.
There was one. There's one in Australia, red one. I can't say his last name. I don't know the bloke, but it's Sam Gadelia or something. I've seen it. I've seen it before. And it looks the same. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty confident. And other than that, man, I think it was just a small batch. I think they're a bit lighter than when the Dominator came. When the Dominator came out.
Yep, and
Champions. I think they were like a lighter weight version of the Dom. They were in between the 2000 and the Dominator because it's bigger than a 2000. Yes. But it's not as big as a Champion, I don't think. I don't think it's as big as Bryce Chapman's car. It might be, but I don't know.
It makes sense that it'd be a little bit because it's on 37s.
Correct.
Yep, and it's Chev based, like a Chev motor in it.
Chev 7 litre. I think it's an Adam Wick. It's an Adam Wick motor. So Wilsons have always dealt with Adam Wick.
Yes.
It's got a 4.5 speed in it.
Sequential.
Yep, sequential. I'm pretty sure it's got new shock. Like when I say new, it's got pretty up to date shocks on it. It's got 4.5 inch Kings on it with fins and fair few tubes. And on the front, it's got some development shocks that are still on the car. I'll probably re-shock the car and keep, I can't not, if I hit a tree or something and bend a shock, I kind of need spares. I can't not finish the race because of shockies. So
yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. I'll probably re-shock the car and then just keep those ones as spares.
Yep, brilliant. No, because it's always been such a beautiful car. It's such a, like, again, we probably should clarify for the guys not super familiar with Wilson's. They actually run two essentially identical cars. It's the 117 and the 153. Is that the two numbers that Wilson's running?
138 and 153.
That's right.
They're identical now. They haven't been identical for a little while. So the closest I think they were to identical was when Josh's car and Bully's car were in the shed. And then I think when Josh's car left, I think that's when the Herder car, the car that I'm taking ownership, might have come in. And then I think when Bully's car left, that was maybe that, I don't know. Maybe they kept I don't know the answer to that. I think they had a single headlighted Jimco as well that stayed there and it's gone somewhere else. I don't know about that one.
Yep, yeah. Very interesting. But it's interesting that so many Wilson cars have come to Australia, isn't it? Like they're a good build for Australia too, because they do keep them lighter. Like they aren't the biggest thing, even though it's funny because now they've gone to the biggest Jimco, which is the Hammerhead, and on 40-inch tires, 2 spares. Like those things are a trophy truck buggy, aren't they? They're amazing.
100%.
Yep. No, it's very cool. So sorry, Josh, I'll let you get back to, because I just wanted to get through the specs of the actual car, because it's such a, again, I knew it was quite a unique car. It's again, Wilsons are always on the cutting edge. You mentioned there, like they were the very first to have 4.0 shocks. They're the very first to have 4.5s. They're the very first to have, like, they've always been in development with Kings. Again, Stapleton, Mikey Stapleton, what a gun. Like that guy just knows how to prep a Jimco to within an inch of its life. It's just perfection. And those guys, I mean, they've come off some really great seasons lately, haven't they? So they're doing really well.
Yeah. Like the car won the 1,000 in 19. Ronnie raced the Mint there at the start of the year, and he comes second to the Wild Dean brothers. So that's if they finish in Class 1 now, good luck. Like
yes,
yeah. But yeah, no, he run around, and it, like the commentators kept saying, that thing's as tight as it was when it was brand new, and it probably knows how to drive itself. So I've probably got to be a bit careful and just learn it and just learn to respect the car. It's a great car. I'm really excited, and I'm just going to take it in my stride and learn how to drive it, and then hopefully business goes well and we can get a little bit of support and have a crack at the Aussie titles in the next couple of years.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So, Josh, again, this, because I was going to say, this does lead excellently onto racing, because I'm fascinated at a few things. Like you said about updating the shocks, are you going to, like, if you have a crack at do you think that the V8 will do its job, like, for the Australian Championship?
Oh, look, the turbo cars, like, I don't want to bring up that debate all the time. Like, people just...
I love it. I just chasing someone, Mikey, that says they're going to win in a V8.
Oh man, I'm going to try my hardest. Like, but I'm going to have to drive it like a 2-stroke. You're going to have to drive it like a 2-stroke, because those turbos, like, I don't care what anyone says. I've been in them. I've been in these V8s. I've been in 4 cylinders, like even in the passenger seat with my customers, or opportunities I've had to ride with people or drive their car. Like, the turbos are so much faster. It's not funny. They're a bit different to drive. You've obviously got if you've got a big set of kahunas, like someone like Kai Floyd in the turbo, it'd be pretty scary, I reckon, because if you could keep it on the pipe, like, they're just unbelievable. Look at Rhodes and Robinson, and there's a reason they're great drivers. Like, they are fantastic drivers, but there's a reason there's a 10-second gap on a 5K course between them and other great drivers. And, like, look, I don't want to say that I need to change to a turbo, nor do I want to. I want to bring the V8 here. I want to race the V8, and I want to stick to a V8. And I'd like to think I don't need a turbocharger to win. But if it does turn out that I'm just flogging a dead horse, and I might need to ring old Nismo and see if he's got a package for me. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or just put 2 turbos on the side of the 7-litre. That'll fix it too.
Booyah.
Yeah.
A true unlimited class.
Fix a few
But I think
rules, I reckon. They would fix a few rules.
Yeah.
I think you're right though, mate. We talk about like the difference between a V8 car and a turbo car to drive, and I think a prime example of that is Ryan Taylor. Dude was hell fast in a V8 car. That's what he'd driven. That's what he'd known all his life. And then when the Get come in and it was twin turbo and he switched over to it, he had to adjust. He struggled a little bit, I reckon. Like it just didn't react the way, like when he went to get on the gas for something rough, like it took that extra quarter of a second or half a second to build boost and react. But now that he's getting his head around how to drive these turbo cars and that Tatum too, like outstanding result for Ryan there. But I think you're 100% correct when you say they're a bit different to drive. Yeah. Everyone was pumped for him. Like,
even when Harley was here and he raced the Get at Gundy, I rode with him for a while when we were testing out at Rob's, and he made the exact same comment. Like, they just, when you're looking to jump on the throttle to get over a set of holes or something you're not suspecting, or you just want that power, he found that he really preferred the V8. And that was, I think if you drove like a Turbo 6 for long enough and you got comfortable with what it does and you get comfortable with how the car reacts under power, and I think if you take any fast driver and you give them enough laps in a car that's very similar in terms of suspension setup at somewhere like the Fink Prologue course, they're going to be 5, 6, 7 seconds quicker in the equivalent turbo car. That's what I think. And you know what? Toby Price is a freak. Toby Price is a freak. He's an animal. Like you've got to take him out of the equation, because it's like, that's like trying to fight Mike Tyson in a boxing ring. That's where he,
or also on a chartered on a commercial
plane.
Airline. That doesn't go well for anyone. It does not go.
So
mate, you're 100% right about Toby. Like, absolute freak. Like that in-cab footage of his prologue lap last year was just like,
it was perfection.
Perfection. That's the word.
He knows every millimeter of the road, and then every millimeter either side of the road. And it's just, I don't think you can get that being a car driver. Like, to be honest, I reckon I could go up and down that Fink track 150 times, and your awareness of where you are would never be the same as if you were a competitive motorbike rider. And I'm just not a good enough motorbike rider to risk riding up and down that track that many times.
Wouldn't make it to Fink. I'd be broken.
I'd be looking for a 6-pack by the off-road club, mate.
Yes.
That far down?
Yeah. Maybe 10 years ago, Joshy?
Yeah. We did it 10 years ago on bikes, and it was horrific.
Not smart. Hey, Mikey, so getting back to Josh's question, I've enjoyed the sidetrack, but so you're going to leave, or I know it's just plans. I know we're not locking you into anything, but the thought process is, depending on situation and that, go over and have a couple of races in America, seen as the car's over there?
Yeah, look, I'd like to do at least one. I don't want to miss Fink next year. I definitely don't want to miss Fink next year. Just with all these four-wheel drive trucks coming in, there's not much of a window, I think, when the right man gets underneath one. And I know that, like, people might say I'm crazy, but they're just so, you put an extra 2 wheels spinning, it's just insane. If you that's why the Can-Ams and side-by-sides are so fast, man. It's the front diff. It's just the front diff. And the suspension obviously working in symmetry with, 15 years ago, they couldn't get CVs and diffs to kind of have that wheel travel under those loads. So it's like bringing that commercial kind of, I think, is going to be the game changer. But where were we? Back to where we're going to race.
In the US.
Yes. I'm gonna race it in the States probably once if all goes to plan. I spoke to Ronnie the other day and indicated that I'd like to do it, and if there was a way that they might be able to help me. So we're gonna team up a meeting there very shortly and work out the details. But the plan is that the new California 300 race in Barstow is what I'd like to do in October.
Yep. Brilliant.
We'll see. They're prepping the car for me now. If it's ready, it's ready. If it's not, like I said, they've been so fantastic. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. If I miss out, I miss out. It's not the end of the world.
No.
But yeah, if the car's ready, I'd like to go do that. And then if all's good with family and business, and then if I can book a boat and work out a way to get the car kind of turned around in that time, I'd like to try and do Parker or the Mint early next year. But I'd say that's probably a long shot. And the goal is just that first race in October and then organise a boat to bring the car home.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, because I guess so. Parker's January, isn't that? Mint's what, mid-March? So mid-March starts getting.
I think it's the start of March this year. I don't know the dates for next year, but like I said, it's cutting it fine in the world we're in at the moment with logistics and stuff. So I probably won't roll that dice, man, unless things have changed dramatically in the terms of shipping and things like that.
Yes, there's an obvious solution to getting your car back.
Yeah.
Yep. No, perfect. I mean, that's always been a dream of ours, hasn't it, Josh? Like, to have a race in America would just be the ultimate. Like, the terrain over there is so different. I don't think that a lot of Australian racers have got their head around how different the terrain, even our rough tracks compared to over there. Again, I don't want to say we don't have rough tracks. Heck, we got Gundy, we got Fink. Like, there's rough tracks around, but holy moly, like the likes of the Mint with those rocky ledges and that, it's just a totally different game. It's amazing to see those full sides.
Yeah, you look at the San Felipe qualifying. I saw a video the other day of Andy McMillan coming over the rise there, and like those holes are swallowing Mason trucks. Like they're throwing Mason trucks into places that they don't want to be, and it's like that's saying something because there's not much on some of these courses that a full size dialed in truck in Australia can't really eat up and swallow. Whereas they're constantly being tested. You see a 6,000 pound trophy truck getting skyrocketed 8-9 foot in the air in the nose. Like it's a whole nother. I think it's a whole nother level in terms of how rough it is, and keep graders off-road tracks.
Yeah, perfect. I like that. Definitely like that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, well, that'll be unreal. I definitely like that. Hey, Mikey, this leads us to another question because, obviously, so again, you're you're the owner of Mike's Shop, not just a part of it, obviously. So we wanted to have a bit of a talk to you because obviously you see a lot of the design and development. Like we were just talking about the four-wheel drive Mason trucks, which are amazing, 40-inch tires, massive suspension travel and all that type of thing. But I wondered, we might ask most of our guests, what do you see as the next big hitter in off-road? Like, do you see like a tire development or like a suspension? Like that's your forte. So is there some game-changing next level that's going to make a huge impact in off-road? Like you sort of almost mentioned it. Like, do you think that four-wheel drive is going to be the thing that if you don't have a four-wheel drive truck in the near future, it's going to be game over for those outright positions? Or what do you feel?
Look, I think in Australia, first of all, if we're going to talk about like developments and whatever, I think before four-wheel drive, I think we're going fast. You know what I mean? Like the guys in the States and in Australia, like the speed is fast. They're going across the holes fast. I think now it comes down to like packaging, like just everyone's chasing such minute gains. The likes of, you look at the McMillans, they're like a key example. They're out testing all the time. So I think that like, are we going to get way faster tomorrow? No, not. Is everyone going to get quicker? Yes, because I think the technology is like example, like the difference between a non-setup side-by-side and setup side-by-side is 20 minutes down the Fink Road. Do you know what I mean? More. And I think that the biggest, especially in Australia, is like guys, they don't have time to test, man. We're all workers. We're all working hard, trying to do our family thing and then have a bit of spare money to go and play on the weekends. And it's so taking that time out to go and test. It's not a thing that is in the parameters for every racer in Australia. So I think that the technology that's coming and is available now, like in low volume and from more than one manufacturer in terms of suspension, it's going to make it easier for everybody to have a safe, fast car, So it's like you go test your car. Fox have got the RAD, King have got EFM, and the live valve technology, it is pretty crazy and it is pretty impressive that it can all be done in cab. Like it's not something that I thought was going to be so quick, like coming into shock absorbers as a teenager. I didn't think that I'd have to try and get savvy on, tech, like I guess electronics.
Yep.
But essentially it's got these systems have an ECU just like a car.
Yep.
And they are just firing off information like crazy. And you can go from having enough compression. And I'm talking about a road car right now. The race car stuff is a little bit further away for it being commercially available, but it is coming, and it will be available to the average punter, neither what brand you have. But like the cars can have that much, like almost infinite adjustment in terms of like you got your main piston, but then you can bottom out your whole shocks with the press of a button. There's like King have got a thing, they call it the oh shit button, and it's a red button on your steering wheel, and it literally just locks everything on stiff in a bad moment. So I think that like people are going to be able to probably plug something into their car, grab the map off old mate who went testing at Fink, go dunk, and I mean if their pistons are valved correctly, obviously they still have to get the work done.
Yes,
but I think a lot of the tuning will be done digitally. There'll be less turning of tubes, more making adjustment on your phone screen and it doing it itself.
Yep.
So,
yeah, wow.
So does it work off potentiometers, Mike? Is that how it's like it? Or we're getting a bit heavy on the tech at the second?
Yeah, I'm not an engineer. I'm just born and bred doing, I guess, being around this stuff. So everything I've learned's been based on the knowledge I've been given from these engineers and these guys who make it. And from what I understand, it's just got a bunch of different sensors. Like they're like shooting off, like I'm talking thousands and thousands of directions every millisecond. And it's reading ground speed, throttle, it's reading braking, it's reading the load on the tires, like it's reading absolutely everything. And it's just much faster than any, kind of like an auto transmission, I guess, from a manual. Like you can bag them all you want, but I don't want to own a manual anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
not unless I'm racing a clapped out something from the 80s.
Yes. Yeah. No, I totally get it. That's amazing because, I mean, obviously with the Ford Raptor Ranger coming out, the new model has all this live valve technology where you're spinning a dial and it's adjusting your suspension as it needs it. Like that's amazing technology. And like you said, once the manufacturers pick it up, everyone's going to go with it. It's going to become, a very commonplace. And that's a very interesting point that you make, like live valving. And I never even thought about the oh crap button. Like that's brilliant because, Josh and I have had this chat. Like we like to set up our car so it can take a big hit because we'd rather make it through the big hit and then live with the, the indifference for everything else. But that's interesting because now you can basically set it up and have that button on the dash for the big hit. That's the oh crap moment, hey?
Yeah, I think it's really the big game changer for teams to be able to have the braking, have the turning, have the confidence that the car's going to go through the rough without misbehaving. And it's definitely coming. It might be a while before teams start adopting it here, but there's teams using it in the US from both Fox and King stables. It's being tested, and I know Andy's got it. I know Lauren Healy's got it. I know Levi Shirley's tested it for King. I know a few other people have used it for King, but I don't know how long away it is, but it's definitely going to make things, I think, easier for everyone to go faster. I think other than that, man, other than a front diff and someone really reinventing the wheel, or whether that be with the regulations or what happens, I can't see us going too much faster over the holes that we're going over unless you start kind of making the cars bigger and widening the tracks.
Yep. It's interesting though because it's fascinating that you talk about all those little percentages because I totally agree. Because I was watching Harley Lettner's video on TubeArt, or YouTuber as he's called now, and it's amazing because I think even like a guy like him, looking at his pace in say 2013, 14, 15 when he was alphaing, and then moving up to the trucks and that, and what he's done. Like that truck now is so on point. They're so dialed. They've got all they're developing the 5-speed Mason-Matic now for the 2-wheel drive truck and all that other stuff. And that all those little 1%ers have actually added up to 10, 15% faster, hasn't it? And
Yeah.
what has blown me away, I don't know if you've seen it, Mikey, that video on YouTube, is he is going through those San Felipe whoops, as all of them are. I know that the Masons are going through, Andy McMillan and all the McMillans are fast. But yeah, they're just going through so fast that if you had shown me that footage a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have thought it was possible, because probably like one of the leaders, let's talk about like, mid 2000s or, 2010 was like a likes of Robbie Gordon. And when he was going over those San Felipe, the big whoops down the power line there, it was quite skatey and sketchy, wasn't it? Like they were really holding on to it. I remember watching Rob Mack, all those two-wheel drive guys. And that, again, at the time, they were class leading, winning. But it's interesting because now they've all got 2%, 2%. And that's led to, I'm only looking at the eye micrometer here, Mikey, but they appear to be a lot faster than they were 10 years ago, despite still being essentially a similar style two-wheel drive trophy truck. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to just constantly testing and finding gains all the time. Like I think, I haven't spoke to Harley or anyone personally about this, but I think if you look at their program and you look at their truck, and you can see that they're kind of developing everywhere. So whether or not they're kind of preparing for the next 2 or 3 seasons, and like everyone else, but there's a lot of development in, suspension, bump stop technology. Bump stops have changed a lot. There's a lot going on there at the moment. And I think the truck, they've got so much more power. The trucks are probably, I don't know if they're bigger. I just think that people had a lot of time to test. There's been a lot of thought, a lot of smart people over there in this industry. And I think it's just been, everyone's grinding. And it's got to the point that's resulted in, there's a lot of fast cars that are settled and they're not on the edge. They're driving extreme speeds comfortably. And I think that will slowly happen here. And that probably comes back to what I was saying. Testing, more technology available, becomes, shared between stables and things like that. And it'll be the similar thing, 15 years ago, there was nowhere near as many good handling cars over there. I think it's the commercialization of shock tuning and the technology and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the other thing that's interesting is, because this brings us back to your Reese Millen statement, or buying a Millen motorsport car, is that the other thing is you're talking about the sharing of information, like these Herbst trucks and that, like those guys all work and develop together, don't they? And same deal with the Mason. Like if you go and developed your own four-wheel drive truck, you're basically building that from the ground up, doing your own testing, your own development, all that side of things. Whereas, like if you join a program like what you've done with, you've gone down the gym car route with Wilson, you're already buying a sorted package. There's a lot to be said for that, for the everyman racer, I guess. None of us are everyman racers. We all want to be winners, but I guess I really think that there's something to be said for a sorted, developed package.
Yeah, man. Yeah, 100%. I think I think that's the quickest way to go fast, it's definitely the quickest way to go fast is to be comfortable. But like I said, I think the more and more people that get enthusiastic about the sport, the more and more, I guess, families that, that have a disposable income, that want to go and race and want to have a good time and they want to test, like you go look at all the big fast guys that are going to win on a weekend. They all test. Even if it's not a lot, they still test more than the blokes that are there kind of on, my capacity or whatever it is. Like I didn't have time to test. I was working. I tested in each section. We'd adjust everything every single stage of each race. And, I just think, sorting your car out, buying a sorted car or sorting your car out, they're the only options. And I think that's going forward. I think that's what's going to make everyone faster. But outright speed, like I said, unless you got a front diff and a lot of practice and a few do-re-mi, I don't think the outright speed's going to get grossly faster very quick. I think it will be slow.
I think one of the things that you probably bring up about testing as well is it's not just the time required to go out and do the testing. There's no point testing if you're not going to treat it like race conditions and you're not going to smack on your car as you can to make sure that your shocks are dialed in and tuned for that. So it's also all prep work that has to go in between there. Like essentially you have to do after testing like you've just been and raced it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, it's not just shocks. Like, gearboxes, tires, it's literally everything.
Yep.
And I think that, it's hard to drive a car testing like you're going to drive in a race, because you kind of just get into a whole nother world when you're racing. And like, it's, I don't know. I just, getting a sorted car is important. And I think that's just kind of, that's it. I guess we went off so much. But it's just, shockies, front diffs, big tires, big engines, and then I think we're kind of capped. Like, outside of putting wings on these things or making them wider, I think Michael Taylor said something similar. I listened to you ask him a similar question, and it's just hard to kind of see how. Maybe electric, maybe there'd be some game changer there. I don't know, maybe some alternate fuel or something that livens them up that we haven't seen, but I can't. I'm like no scientist, no engineer. I got no idea.
No, I like that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because with the development of it, because it is everything, isn't it? Like, even interestingly, we were talking about Harley before in the concrete and watching their great video on YouTube. Like, they had the issue at San Felipe, 2 alternators. Like, when you're running a 450 horsepower LS, alternator is not even an issue. But when you've got a 9,500 RPM revving Joe Gibbs race, small block, big cube thing, like, it's amazing the things that you never probably think are going to fail. That's going to be a point that can take you out of a race, isn't it? So all that development. But I reckon, Mikey, this leads us to an awesome segue, because I know something that you're passionate about is getting these beam cars back out of sheds and getting people racing in essentially a limited type class, because I think we've all had the conversation that great drivers, if we took a lot of these legends, and I'm talking legends like Shannon Wrench and, Dave Fellows and all these big old school racers that were truly leading the championships and all those game changers, they all came from an earlier beam car class. They all came from a limited class, because it's like riding 125 two-strokes. And then, like all the guys that the first motorbike they've ever had is a 450 motocrosser. I hate to say it, they're generally junk because they get too lazy. They relax on the horsepower. They don't have the corner speed. They don't have all the things because they can get away with it on the big bike. Oh, in this case, the Pro Buggy or the trophy truck. Most of our truly talented drivers out of the sport for many, many years have come from, go-karts or limited background, that place that they've had the corner speed. They know how to read terrain. And Mikey, I saw a post that you put up on Facebook, and I tell you what, I was cheering for it, is that you're saying there's a ton of cars sitting in sheds out the back of places, and that why aren't we racing them? Why don't we make a truly competitive beam car class?
Yeah, well, like I think I just think it's an answer to a lot of problems. I think, people carry on about the cost of the sport, which is valid. And then, you got other guys who are just throwing do-re-mi at it because they want to win and just like investing. And there's a huge gap. So it's like, I'm thinking to myself, where have the beam cars gone? They're not racing because there's no they're not in a different class. Like, the engines are one thing, but you take a beam buggy, regardless of a few good drivers. Now, I know Dan Wells has done awesome in a beam car at Gundy, but that's a Bunderson. Some American beam cars can mang through the holes if they're set up right. Like, they're good. And that's a good car and he's a good driver. But in general, the difference in performance between a beam car to an A-arm or a J-arm car at a track like Fink, Don River, Gundawindi, anything rough is going to be much more than an engine. And I think the side-by-sides have proven that, because they've got under 200 horsepower at the wheels. They've got the suspension travel of the big cars, and they're a long way in front of a lot of cars with a lot more power than them at a lot of tracks.
Yes.
Yep.
So I think that if the boys with beam cars had a place to race where they could still win a trophy, local events, short course events, if there was just like a beam, I don't know if it needs to be a beam limited and a beam unlimited, because a lot of different motors out there, or just go boom, throw you all in the one category. Yep. At least use on par at these events, or have an A and a B. I just think it will bring a lot of good drivers, young drivers that may not be able to afford a side-by-side, that can afford a 1650, 1990 1650 or something, and their old man knows how to work on that gearbox, and their old man knows how to rebuild that motor, and there's no computer in it, you know. So it's like, I think it would be very healthy for the local club level. I think it'd be very healthy for state level. And then just look at Nora. Look at Nora. Have a look at Nora. Look at the numbers at class 12s at any event over there, especially the smaller events. It'll blow your mind. Class 5 unlimited, 1600s, and they're here. There is an abundance of those cars in sheds here that are out of date in safety, which obviously needs to be reviewed. So there needs to be obviously a vintage set of safety rules. And look, it's not going to change my life if it comes or goes. I just think it would be healthy for the sport. I would probably buy a beam car to race at the lower, I guess, the smaller events, club events. One, they're probably more fun around Land Cruiser Park than a big old sloppy desert car. Two, cost half the price. Three, it's just a lot of fun. And I think that it would bring a lot of enjoyment to a lot of people if they were racing for a trophy. It would get a lot of guys off couches in their shed and getting their cars running. I think. I could be wrong.
No.
I might be way off the engine, but I just never understood.
Yeah, so Mikey, let's throw out a proposal here because you got a little bit of a platform. I'll hang it out there. So what you're suggesting is maybe, because obviously there's class 3 at the moment, we don't want to muck with that. There's some great competitors there, but that is limited to a 1300cc motor, which is obviously killing most of the beam cars that we're talking about sitting in sheds. So what we're talking about is maybe say a 3.5 naturally aspirated and under as our limited beam class, and then an open motor up to whatever the CAM's rules is at the time, whether it be turboed or a V8 car or whatever, in an unlimited beam class car. You could run it as 12 and 13 or something like that.
I'd probably even split it, only because I remember back in the day, I'd probably even split it at 2 litre and under, because there's a lot of little beam cars that don't weigh a lot, where you throw an SR20 or a 2 litre naturally aspirated thing, or a class 10 motor or a 3 litre 6-cylinder, they're super quick. Some of the like back to what I said, that race car behind me, it had a Porsche 3.5 in it.
Yes.
But if it's it might have been a 3.2. So that would, you can't. So I think that with the beam cars, you'd probably go a little bit lower in the engine capacity for the limited.
Yes.
And then, if you've got 2.5 litre and up, you're in the open class, just run what you run and have fun.
Yeah. Because again, really the horsepower there, because you're starting to talk about, a V6 these days will make 350 pretty easily with a little tickle. So, that's a car that's going to outrun the beams pretty quick anyway. It's going to be a fast car.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They are fast, but the ruts are big. It's different to what it used to be. There was no 40-inch. There was no 37s. There was no 35s. Tracks weren't degrading like the way they do now. So it's beam cars hard work. I had a race in a beam car at the 12-hour when I went out there with Molesy. I drove Molesy's Razorback and a 1650 beam car. Yes. Let me tell you, when I was driving Molesy's car, I was driving on fear of having to pay for crashing it. Yes. When I was driving this 1650, and I'm sorry to the owner at the time, Scotty Raven. I was driving it like a rental go-kart, and the thing was so much fun. I don't think I've ever had that much fun in a race car. And I really think it would do good things for the sport. And it's like I said, especially the local club levels, because I think that's who's suffering at the moment.
Yeah.
I really think Gympie's a really sustainable single club. They do a lot. And I know a lot of the Burdekin Club, and I know Queensland's real healthy.
Yes.
But I just think that around Australia, local clubs need a kind of reason to be great. I think beam racing will make local club racing great again, kind of thing, not to sound cliche.
No, but you're right. It gives an outlet for a lot of those cars that are sitting in sheds at the moment. And like you said, they might have a turbo SR20 on it, and that means they get chucked in in with Pro Buggies. So I think it opens up a door for them to be competitive in their own little category. And probably what you'll see, like you said, you'll see cars coming out of the woodworks again and people getting involved because they've got a category to race amongst themselves. And like you said, it's probably not a bad thing for people to dip their toe in the water. You might have someone that goes, I don't know a lot about off-road racing, but I'm not going to spend 60 grand on a Can-Am, but I can get this car for 15 grand and you're in it. And then all of a sudden we've got a family that's now competitors for life, and they will be buying those Can-Ams. They will be buying those Pro Buggies. They will be buying bigger and better cars as they get hooked and fall in love with the sport. It's a great way to attract new people, I reckon.
And it also gives them the option to stay where they are, enjoy it at the cost that they can afford, not get upset or that the sport's running away from them. Because, like, unfortunately, and like I've been very unpopular with this opinion, I've been smashed on social media. Like, I can't tell you how many times, man. I just get hammered like hail. It's crazy. But anyway, I get smashed on social media because, the sport costs money and it's going to get more expensive. And I just don't think that anybody should be putting their dream of racing above the growth of the sport. And that only comes from loving the sport. Like, I know I'm never going to win the Baja 1000. I can't afford it. I can never afford it. And, like, there's no chance in heck. It's never going to happen. And it was my dream to race and try and win the Baja when I was a kid. I was going to do it, mate. You were not going to tell me otherwise. But the fact of the matter is the sport's become commercialized. It takes $1 million+ truck to win on a fair day now, and the prep and the team backing it and the $200,000 adventure down there, like, that's out of the reach of 99% of people. And I think that if we focus on state club level racing, really, really nurture grassroots, those that can afford and those that want to put the money forward to go and chase these big races, they can. But it doesn't take away from what's happening down here that's feeding these big races. These big races are nothing without the grassroots. And I just think that in the last few years, with all the different organisations and all the licensing, I think a lot of it's gone missing. I just do. I know it's healthy, but I just think the core, like, I don't know, I might be wrong. It's just the vibe I've been getting, and I think that if we really focus on the grassroots, we'll have a win.
Yep.
Well, mate, I think one of the things as well that you talk about is we get more competitors. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, without being, I'll try and word this as best I can. Cost of living's gone up, so that means fuel costs more. The tomato steaks cost more. To get the signs made costs the club more. So, like, old mate that comes and volunteers his time on the grader, it's now costing him $2,000 rather than $1,000, and the clubs need to pay for that somehow. So that means if we only have 30 entries, and we had 30 entries 5 years ago, and now that the prices of everything have gone up, we've still only got 30 entries. Well, that means that the competitors have to pay more. So if now the cost has doubled of putting that race on, but we've also doubled our competitor base, like, the price is going to stay the same. In my opinion, like you said, this is only my opinion, but unless we are growing the competitor base, prices are going to go up. That's just basic economy, because cost of fuel's gone up, cost of everything's gone up, so the clubs have to pay for that somehow. So unless we're getting more people into the races, it's going to continue to cost us more money to race. Otherwise, it's and I think it's a great idea, to get more people there to grow these grassroots races. It's simple.
Totally agree. Well, I think that what we need to do. Yeah, I know. We like it. Definitely like it a lot. And I think that what we need is everyone that listens this far, they need to get in the comments and have a bit of a discussion, Mikey, and tell us what they reckon about ruling and about that sort of thing. But I totally agree. I think that the real key to growing our sport is, I know it's said all the time, but then we don't nurture it, do we? So we've got to make sure that there's opportunities for guys to race. And like you said, the biggest key that I see out of what you're saying, Mike, is that it's going to be dad's old race car from the 80s, and it gives it a new lease on life. They don't even have to go and buy something to go racing. They go, "Hey, Dad, remember when you were racing back in the 80s at the Mallee Rally?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I do. Fine, let's make this happen." Whereas, again, like you said, going and finding 40, 50 grand these days isn't necessarily an option for a lot of people. Whereas, yeah, again, I love the side-by-side thing too as well, on a different track. But even in the fact that a lot of these little beam cars, you can put them on a standard open tandem trailer and tow them behind your Ford Ranger. You got a trophy truck team, and all of a sudden you've got the Kenworth truck and the double and everything like that. Like, it just becomes bigger than Ben-Hur. Cost, everything. And then all of a sudden you've got a team and you've got to put them in a motel at Gundawin. Like, and I'm not knocking that. I love seeing teams like Smoothie and all the big guys do that. But it's just an interesting take on it once you go that way, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, and this is what I mean, man. I think if we nurture, like I said, back to what I was saying, if we nurture the I guess the start of it all, it'll always be fruitful at the top, you know. Like there'll always be someone that can be there, afford to be there, and put on a good show. And
absolutely,
I'm happy for that not to be me if it means that our sport's going on the television, man, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Or not the television anymore, but the computer screen or the phone or whatever.
Yeah, the internet's the new world.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Social media. Yep. Awesome.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off, DC. I just want to circle back to something there, Mikey. You're talking about the Baja 1000 and wanting to win it. I just thought I'd throw that up there. And so that was 2017. Me and BT went over. You'll see that's us holding a Baja overall trophy there. So I'm just going to remove that before anyone else can work out where that trophy came from. But yeah, just thought I'd put that up there.
One thing I know is it's not yours, mate.
That's pretty cool. That's real cool. So.
Yeah, he obviously stole that from somewhere. No, very good. Hey, well, Mikey, on that note, we've had a fantastic hour with you and we've appreciated your time. I tell you what, we'll have to get you back on because we love talking shocks and we love talking technology. And I really enjoyed that conversation. No question about the beam class because, again, it's something Josh and I got to be honest, I don't know why. I never thought of the beam car class. We were always very big. That class 10, it had an allure for me. You know, the fact that you could buy a single seat 10 car or something like that. That was very interesting. But, mate, beam car class is absolutely one that I reckon would be skyrocketing. And I'd love it because, again, how good would it be to put, you know, I've got a son at 16 or, you know, he's 14, but coming up 16, like that's the sort of thing that he could really sink his teeth into. Shifting a H pattern, still using a clutch, you know, combi, all that sort of stuff that's true driving skills. I think that's something. And again, you'd pick up a little Hornet or, you know, there's a lot of little cars sitting around in old farmers' sheds and bits and pieces that I reckon that'd be a brilliant way to get racing.
Yeah, man. I think so. So I appreciate it.
I like it.
Yeah, I really do. I didn't know why he's wanted to talk to me. There's a lot more other people that would probably be a bit more helpful on the show, but I appreciate you having me. And
well, we talked about it. Hey, it's your name's Mikey, so we're basically anyone with Michael. If you just want to apply to talk at Dirtbagz, you come on board because we've got a bit of a thing for Michaels apparently.
Well, mate, we're a friendly bunch of lads. We're a friendly bunch of lads.
That's what I hear. Fantastic. Well,
so
again,
just a little plug for you, Mike. So if people want to get in contact with you at Mike's Shock Shop to find out how they can, because you guys sell, we'll just give you a little plug for your business here, but you guys sell essentially shocks, all lots of different brands for lots of different vehicles. You guys do stuff for like 79s, 200s, Rangers, obviously Can-Ams, Polarises, like all the side-by-sides, off-road race cars, 4.5s, you know, 7.8 bypasses, 3.5, like whatever you guys need. What's a way they can get in contact with you guys to find out, you know, any information about shock absorbers that they want?
Yeah, so look, if it's just if you're chasing King Shocks and you got a four-wheel drive or something, just hit up the King Shocks Australia website and that'll put you in touch with our dealer network. We've got dealers in every major city to look after like the King full drive, King Shocks Australia full drive side of things. Service, tuning, supply of anything kind of off-road. Like if it's being used on an off-road car, we're trying to work out if I should rebrand or not, because it's kind of like Mike's Off-Road now. You know, I sell impact helmets, fluid logic, mag locks, steel it paint. Like it's kind of grown into everything that I like, Mike's. Like if I like the product and it can get used on a race car, I kind of work out if it's viable in business. And so Mike's has kind of turned into a website of everything kind of off-road. But so if you're after that kind of stuff, Mike's, or if you're after a set of King Shocks, just through the King Dealer Network's the easiest way.
Nice.
Appreciate it.
No, too easy, mate. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, as per always. And we'll see it in, what's the next race? Fink? You coming out to Fink?
Yeah, I'll come. I'm going to come for a look. I've got a couple of teams. I said I'd help. I'm not going to be out there in the same capacity I have been in other years. I've been helping guys, I think, every year since 2013, and then last year we raced it. So I just decided this year we were going to lock in 2 or 3 teams, help them out, and I guess just enjoy ourselves a bit. Might do an extra night in the desert camping or something, just have a little break.
I reckon you'll turn a couple of tubes, Mikey.
Oh, I think probably, but I think we'll turn the phones off after 4 o'clock every day for sure.
Perfect, mate. Enjoy it. Well, it'll be a good
Thank
time.
you.
We'll catch up for a beer out there, mate.
Yeah, definitely overdue.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on Dirtbagz, mate, and we appreciate it. And have a good night. And we look forward